In this episode of Property Journal, I'm talking to Will Tindall. Will is a pioneer in the property industry who started out with a simple but bold idea to design the ultimate experience for motorsport enthusiasts. He's created Escapade Silverstone, which marries property, hospitality and motorsport, creating a completely unique opportunity to own a piece of world-famous motoring history. As someone that's interested in both property and motorsport, this is going to be really interesting. I can't wait to talk to Will. Will, welcome.
Thanks.
Tell me, who is Will Tindall?
So I'm a property developer focused on the hospitality sector. Originally started out in banking and now, entirely focused on hospitality, but at sort of niche sporting venues, locations.
Elaborate.
So first kind of major development in the UK is on the edge of the track at Silverstone, so right on the edge of the track. So we're building 60 residences and a clubhouse, and we're just getting to completion of the first couple of residences, so about 3 or 4 weeks away.
Congratulations, that's
Thanks.
awesome. Tell me, how did you get into this? So you mentioned you're in banking and then into property. Talk me through that early journey of who Will wanted to be and how you got into this.
There's a few little steps, in between. So originally banking, originally UK focused. So worked in the city.
Sure.
Decided after sort of 6 or 7 years that liked certain elements of it, but always had that kind of entrepreneurial drive, and wanted to pursue that. So didn't really have the kind of, the idea or the particular inspiration at the time to go and try and do something, off my own back. So ended up actually working for a private equity group in Central Asia. So ended up in credit crunch. So didn't know really where to go. Knew I didn't want to be necessarily in sort of, the more traditional markets. Always fascinated by emerging and frontier markets, new markets, high growth sort of opportunities. So ended up in Mongolia, which was quite out there at the time. So sort of 2009, 2010, most economies in the world were, not in a great place, and it was fastest growing economy in the world in 2009. So I mean, coming from a super low base, so it wasn't
Fair enough. Yeah.
But so went out there for on and off for about 5 years, but lived there for just under 3 years.
And the transition from that to property, was that an entrepreneurial transition?
Yeah, so originally banking was always with a property focus.
Okay.
So looking after corporates within the development world primarily. We were a sort of property focused bank.
Yeah. So that gave you access to the numbers, the appraisals, the principles.
Exactly. Lending, expectations from what a credit committee goes through.
Sure.
And then on the private equity side, it was effectively an investment operating group.
Yeah.
Lots of weird and wonderful sort of sectors, but the main crux of it was developing. So developing in Ulaanbaatar, the capital of Mongolia. So we became the biggest developer out there, which again, low base, but super exciting. We were building big, relatively big for out there. Certainly the biggest buildings that the capital had ever seen.
Yeah.
So mixed use, sort of condo style.
Sure.
Buildings. Yeah, it's quite a different way of building.
Absolutely. So with that experience to then bringing you up to the property that you got into here, mixing it with lifestyle, mixing it with motorsport.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I transitioned from sort of the Mongolia world to living in Hong Kong. So then ended up doing a bit more kind of sun and sea development.
Okay.
Not necessarily, taking kind of sweat equity in certain opportunities. So we were there at inception, working typically with kind of high net worths. Yeah. So, to be honest, a lot of them were sort of trophy assets, guys who'd had a very successful career in, a sort of, completely separate sector and decided that they had a beautiful piece of land in Indonesia or, Sri Lanka or Thailand.
Sounds amazing.
Which was great. And I wasn't ready to necessarily come back to the UK at that time. So set myself up in Hong Kong, and then kind of darted around Southeast Asia, and built a little consultancy doing that. So very small, but really kind of getting in there right from before there was even kind of a brand as such, just a plot of land. Hey, what can we do with this? So did that for another couple of years. Then sort of got to that stage, hit early 30s, and ended up getting married, UK, in the UK,
Settling
set
down.
up in the UK.
Yeah.
Sort of family probably wasn't too far away, so the focus was sort of coming back here a little bit. So then came back, gradually was sort of doing the transition, so spending a lot of time going between London and Hong Kong, and then eventually sort of priorities with family meant that actually I sort of was spending more and more time here, and then we had our first child, so decided I didn't actually want to be away for months on end, so came back here and then looking for opportunities. So the Silverstone opportunity was actually two other separate individuals, who one had been involved in sort of modular volumetric housing and had been approached by Silverstone because Silverstone had been kind of wanting to monetize some of their assets.
Sure.
So some of their the land around the track. The reality is nothing kind of came of that, but I knew one of these individuals and said, hey, that sounds super interesting. Love my motorsport, love cars in general, obviously property as well. It's like, wow, it's a way to try and marry these two up. So really kind of got involved, was offered a stake in this, in the development as such, if I could commercialize it, take it through planning. So that's what I did. And then, long story short, ended up acquiring the shares of the other two individuals, and that's how it all started.
That's interesting. So take me through the planning conversation then. That fascinates me as someone that's done a lot of development and so on. It can be minefield, it can be painfully slow, and that's so innovative, right? That's something that whether it's English nature, whether it's English heritage, all the different factors that come in. How's the journey been to get planning on it?
Actually, with this particular opportunity, it hasn't been quite the nightmare that I've been involved with, which is not what you typically hear. I think Silverstone is seen as as a super important sort of market, little employer, local, really strong driver for the local kind of economic ecosystem as such. So the local planning authority have always been keen to support that and grow that. And there was a big master plan at Silverstone that was set up 10 years ago. So there was actually a sort of precedent already set. There's an outline consent in place. So we took that on. And then interestingly, we were actually pushed by the planners to do something really iconic, which you don't normally get.
No.
I think mainly Silverstone is actually, it's not overlooked by any any villages. Actually all the residential's quite far away. There's already some pretty standout buildings there. So we were given free rein, which is a bit of a nightmare when you kind of give the full design liberty to the architects. And
nice for you though, because it brings the creativity into development, which is a lot of the fun. And sometimes I've certainly found the planners can remove that, and it just ends up being not quite the vision you'd have liked. So now, from a funding point of view, that must have been interesting. So you've got something relatively bespoke there, and setting the pricing. You've got no comparables. Talk me through that, just to actually get the numbers of the appraisal kind of put together as a development. Yeah,
so I mean, it was there really isn't a sort of a direct comp set to use, or real sort of precedents out in the market.
Sure.
So actually, it was a pretty big risk at the start, and everything that so albeit it runs as effectively as a hotel, right? Actually, individuals can buy these residences, and what we're offering is clearly the kind of the lifestyle motorsport perks and excitement, but actually as a standalone commercial yielding asset, does that stack up in the UK against other commercial assets? And there's certain good tax benefits from individuals through SPVs owning commercial assets versus buy to let or whatever else. So we kind of stripped that all back and said, right, how do we set the pricing model based upon, at the time, we thought a strong commercial yield in the UK was sort of around the 6.5-7% net mark. So that was, that's how it originally came about. And we thought, if we can offer that in the market and, have some real substance to that, and then on top of that, give the kind of the motorsport lifestyle element to it, we thought, we hoped it would be attractive, albeit we weren't sure. We started out complete clean sheet. This is what we think it's worth.
And you can't really test the market, right?
You can't at all. Once you go out, you're out in the market, and because it's Silverstone, it got a lot of publicity.
Sure.
So once you go out, you can't suddenly turn around and say, hey, it didn't quite work. We need to lower the price or whatever else.
Yeah. So you've gone out to market. What was the response? How's it
was
gone?
Great, actually. We, again, some pretty sleepless nights, and it didn't happen immediately. But we started to build the brand, build the recognition. Fortunately, motorsport is a massively growing pastime. We slightly rode the Drive to Survive wave, which was
amazing what that's done for Formula 1.
Incredible, yeah, and actually motorsport more broadly as well.
Okay, yeah.
We've 18 months later, since we kind of launched the pricing and stuff like that, we're now, we've 60 residences in total. Yep. We're about 7 or 8 left, which is great, which is really fun.
In a tough market as well.
Yeah, really
Interest
tough
rate
market.
rises, cost of living crisis.
Yeah, and we've just coming out of COVID, and
Oh, well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the danger of being slightly kind of pioneering, right?
Yeah.
First mover is great to an extent, but also the more traditional routes in terms of funding and valuations, right? Funding is reliant on sort of residual land values and stuff like that. We struggled. We struggled at the start because going out certainly to that kind of mid-tier market, funding market, to go and get some debt. We thought, hey, this is going to be great. We've got proof of concept because we've got sales coming in. There's a long-term carry in the in the project. The margins are where you'd kind of expect the margins to be.
Yeah.
But we kind of sat in the middle because we had an off-plan sales resi story, but we weren't resi. So the institutions that fund, they want to put you into a bucket, right?
Yeah, sure.
And we kind of didn't fit in that bucket. And also, there weren't any comps to go out and say, oh, this has been done in, wherever else in the world. So we can get an idea of, what the value is. So it was really tough at the start.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, really tough.
Yeah.
So, we fortunately, we kind of, went down that debt route, took too long, became too expensive. So ended up, kind of doubling down on sales actually. And then we got to a point where, the level of sales was such that actually,
you've proved concept then, which fair play. And I had to do the same. So one of the first units, developments that I did in that committed development side of things was about 110 units, and I was asked by the bank to sell 40 of them.
Yeah,
it's a lot. 8-9 months before PC. Yeah. Which was frustrating because the market was actually trajectory was going quite nicely up, but it was more about proving concept and making the bank happy, and then everything's fine. And so, but fair play that you
sleepless nights, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You just have to achieve the sales, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? But if from a business point of view, it's something that you were new into,
Mm-hmm.
you experienced, very experienced, probably multiple kind of, as you say, appraisals and working through different projects. But when it's your own,
Yeah.
and all the other things you've got to manage, the people and the side of things in business, it's not easy.
No, it's. I mean, yeah, the kind of the glory road of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You know, just in general.
Sure.
I think the reality is, you know, you've got to be dead set on these things,
Yes.
and you've got to actually. I think you've got to enjoy the process, because the amount of time that you need to commit to seeing everything through, and actually, if it sits squarely on your shoulders, and you've got, you know, multiple stakeholders, you know, you're responsible for paying, you know, a lot of salaries and stuff like that. Well, you know, you're going to have super sleepless nights, right?
It's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
I spoke to Grant Bovey on this program. He's gone into marrying crypto to property, which a lot of people have talked about. And a lot of people have their own opinion on property, let alone crypto. Have you had anyone that's wanted to buy properties off you using crypto, and where do you sit with that?
We, particularly in the early days when it was really everything was very exciting around crypto, we definitely had a lot of approaches. Always quite hard to tell who were the real guys or who were slight chancers, you know, tire kickers. We did have people wanting to buy through crypto. We weren't set up for it. It's not. I think, you know, just the volatility, it wouldn't have worked from our side. It would have left us quite exposed. And actually, from a institutional relationship, you know, a lot of the institutions at the time weren't comfortable with crypto. Appreciate, you know, times have moved on, but we pushed back. We didn't do it. Albeit we do have buyers who've made money out of, you know, sort of more of like, you know, software related to blockchain and you know, so you know, who've come in and you know, a couple of young guys who've been very successful, but also very grounded and they just made a strong usage of, you know, the sort of the
I'd
tech
be interested to
side.
see where that goes. I think it's in a stage at the moment where a lot of people are wary of it, skeptical of it.
Yeah.
It's obviously taken a tonking in the last couple of years, but at the same time, potentially it's here to stay, and will it be embraced within the property side of things? How are you doing that? How are you juggling being a husband, being a dad, and being successful in business?
It is tricky. I put my wife in a really awkward position, and it was my 40th, and I was like, okay, can I give myself a 40th present? And she was definitely reluctant to kind of condone it. But I think, I mean, the series that I'm doing is actually, it's only 6 races. It's all UK focused. There are test days and stuff like that. But for me, because I'm kind of, you know, in the pits, my teammate is actually one of the sort of preeminent global circuit designers. So we look at schemes, future schemes together and stuff like that. And we've tried, you know, fortunately he's got a young family, similar age to my family. So, you know, the family come along to the racing.
So you're involving them.
Yeah, as much as possible. And you know, the team that we use, a team called DTO are great actually, because they do the hospitality piece, right? So, you know, a paddock can be not a particularly friendly place for kids and families. And actually, you know, they kit out the individual garages, and you kind of, you know, it's a nice place to spend some time, which is, you know, it's been really good.
That's good.
Yeah, fun. You should definitely do subject to time and family.
I know. When I say I bottled it, it was put a lid on it for now.
Yeah.
You know, it was the wrong time. I could see, and also I'm competitive, and I go all out. And I thought, gosh, if I get into this now, it could seriously distract me.
Slippery slope.
Cost me a lot of money. Yeah, I know.
As soon as you're in there,
I know, but it's something that I absolutely want to go back to. I've done a lot of karting, good social side of things, but fair play for taking that on. We've touched on success, you know, in context of what you're achieving right now with Escapade at Silverstone. It's successful, but how do you define success personally?
I think, you know, the reality is when I was sort of starting out, went into banking, and it probably was so that I could earn good cash and be well set up and be independent, you know, from an early age. I think that's changed. I think the money side, I mean, obviously you need to have a certain amount of money in the in the bank account to hopefully not worry too much about it and be able to do not necessarily race series because they are expensive, but just with kids and responsibilities and stuff like that. So having that security is very important, but I think it's what's not so important is having the whatever, the 10-car garage or the super yacht or something like that. That doesn't really drive me like maybe it perhaps might have done when I was very, very young. And actually it's about giving the family what they want, being able to go on holidays and stuff like that, and just have the independence and not have the stress of it. I mean, it's been a hairy ride, right? When I remortgaged my house for a business 5 years ago that wasn't a success. It was a fintech business. I kind of did it coming out of property. It was when fintech just really kicked off. We were super early on, and we didn't go. It wasn't a spectacular sort of. We went bust, but we made the wrong decisions. 3 years or 2.5 years of not taking a salary, employing people. It was stressful. It was really stressful. And it was just fortunately pre-starting a family. So I was in the position. I had the kind of the luxury to be able to take those risks. But I wouldn't be able to do that now.
No.
It's just it'd be
whole different level of stress.
Irresponsible and
I get that. You touched on stress and actually mental health is a key. It's been talked about so openly, which is a good thing. But actually sitting in the JAQ, Just Ask a Question, social media mental health platform, where people can ask questions to top doctors, specialists, and people with lived experiences about their own mental health. Clearly, you were touching on the fact that stressful time, for you there, and we all have that. What do you think of the Jack principle?
I think as a resource, it sounds amazing, right? Everyone has their own stresses and emotions and stuff like that, and I think it's the one thing that I kind of disagree with that whole, you are somebody who requires support, you are somebody that doesn't. Actually, it's not as binary as that, right? We all have pretty dark days. Things go, and a lot of it is chance. Things can go well, things can go badly. It can be enough to, tip somebody from thinking they're, in a good place to suddenly actually the knock-on consequences where you do need that support, right? You need to somehow just have a kind of a way of taking a step back and looking at it from a different perspective. I do a lot of that through, I think, as a lot of people do, exercise massively helps me. But I notice, if I don't go and do something in the morning first thing, I'm in a really different headspace. It really helps.
Same as that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. I was going to ask you what you do, because I think to be as driven as you are, motivated as you've been to set up the businesses and consistently throughout where you are now, I'm the same. Exercise has been really important to me, and even as far as knowing I've got to get outside and get fresh air. The feeling of the endorphins, the vitamin D, it's so important, even to the point where the birds are tweeting and so on. But what about your mental health? Have you ever spent any time on mindset and that sort of positivity and breath work and all the things that are available, or are you much more just focused on the drive of what you need to do from a family and a business point of view, and then keeping fit?
I think I've definitely tried sort of the meditation side, and that's probably about as far as I've gone in terms of the more non-traditional ways of doing it. I think I've worked out internally kind of what works for me and what doesn't. So the exercise is a big piece. I tend to, if I can't sleep at night, I know that if I pick up a book and read, I will be able to sleep. But that's taken me years to realise, right? Rather than getting on your phone.
You've worked that out for yourself.
It's taken a long time. But now I do know, what those sort of triggers to, I think, to a point, right, to overcome certain hurdles that mentally, I might be going through. But I think, as you said, getting outside is a big thing, and it's kind of hard, right? Because if if you've got a lot going on and a lot sitting on your plate, which you have to achieve, and there's sensitive deadlines, and you're stressing about things, it's very hard to kind of set aside like be it an hour or something like that, to say actually, no, I'm going to turn off my phone.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for a walk, and I'm going to try not to think about
Yeah.
work, because it's quite hard to turn your head off, right?
Definitely.
You can't do it.
You mentioned you do it first thing though. That's what I do. I just try and make sure I leave the gym stuff by the side of the bed.
Yeah.
And it's literally what I try and do first thing, because then
it's so hard
and I've
to
ticked the
then come
box as
back.
well. Yes, because
Yeah.
with the greatest will in the world, if you try and do it later in the day gets busy and unforeseen, and then I'm frustrated by the time I'm going to bed because I haven't done it.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it is that it's sort of self-fulfilling, right? If you feel you haven't achieved something in terms of, you're going to feel worse for it, having not done the exercise, and then sure enough.
Have you tried these ice baths? You see a lot of the Formula 1 drivers.
Yeah.
I've never done one.
I haven't.
Cold
either.
showers. I think they're brilliant. People have different ways of using a cold shower. You haven't done these ice baths.
No, I've tried the cold shower thing a few times.
Yeah.
It's quite hard. Like it's hard to do it consistently. I don't mind. Like particularly if you run out of hot water or something like that. But it does make you feel. I mean, 100%. It makes you feel better.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to
consistently do it every
commit
day.
to that every day. Yeah.
Especially when you know how enjoyable a warm shower is.
Yeah.
How important is legacy to you?
Yeah, I think it. More and more so as I've got older. I think I think about that a lot more. I love property just because you are, you're building something tangible, right? In the banking days, I always wondered, what am I actually doing, right? To be honest, and I love the fact that, there will be something at Silverstone for all to see, hopefully to like, for years to come. So that legacy thing is more and more important. Actually, I realise the importance of that now.
And actually, that's a really good point. I mean, I was at Silverstone, not the weekend just gone, the one before, the British GT. Good friend of mine runs a race
event,
team.
right?
Great event.
Yeah, really good.
And we did stand opposite the development. And you think, actually, and that's legacy in itself. I've enjoyed that about property. You can literally, show the kids that there's properties that you've done that wouldn't have been done if you hadn't been involved. But to be right next to the racetrack at Silverstone, that's proper legacy. I think what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you.
It's
appreciated.
Innovative. It's hopefully something you can replicate elsewhere. And I'd love to come and see. Some of the. Yeah, I'd love to do that, and sometime in the near future. But thank you so much for being so open and
appreciate
talking to today.
Thanks for the time.
Cheers, Will.
Cheers.